Hello and welcome back to Hamstaku. This is the second part of my favorite games of all time list. We're going to look at the next 10 games, including my favorite game of all time. If you haven't seen the first part though, go check it out. But if you have, let's jump right into part 2.
Number 10. Batman Arkham Asylum. There are certain games that center their entire design around a single idea. Oftentimes those are the best ones, as they follow a clear vision. This game is one of those, as it also follows a simple idea. You are Batman. Every little design decision made in this game further enforces the fact that you are Batman. The now often copied fighting system is one of the most fun fighting systems around. It makes you feel badass at every moment. The stealth system is simple but very rewarding. Whether you are sneaking up on guys, use scare tactics, or just hide in a myriad of possible places. And even traversing the environment, which is beautifully realized by the way, makes you feel like Batman. While the sequel featured an open world, the first game's flow is just so much better since you journey through one tightly packed environment instead of a big one with lots of empty space. While the game isn't perfect due to some questionable boss fights, it is damn close otherwise. Number 9. Civilization 5. Just one more turn. A phrase you will utter quite a lot during a Civilization session. And before you know it, it is 3 in the morning and you just spent a whole day playing one of the most addictive games ever made. Following the rise of your civilization from a single city to a sprawling empire is more fun than any history lesson in the world. I said before that I like games about choices, and few games give you more choices than Civilization games. Every turn you need to balance out the need of your population, have to factor in economic realities, and look out for crazy barbarians trying to ruin your day. Do you build an army or a library? Sure, the army sounds nice if the barbarians attack, but with greater knowledge come greater weapons. Let's see what your enemies say to a nuclear strike. There are so many paths to victory, especially with the newest expansion. Do you win by killing everything, spread your religion around the globe, or having the biggest culture in the world? Whatever you choose, be ready to lose a lot of productivity to this game. And what other game lets you fight against a tyrannical empire-building Gandhi? Number 8. Dark Souls. A lot has been said about this game recently, and while most people are very hung up on the difficulty of it, they are kind of missing the point. Sure, the game isn't easy, but by the way some people talk, it sounds like it'd be easier to fight a tiger barehanded than it would be to play through this game. And sure, it's not an easy game, but I know a lot more difficult games that people don't get so hung up on. Like, have you played Mega Man 9 for example? That game is way harder than Dark Souls. Most retro games are actually harder than Dark Souls. But while the difficulty in retro games often comes from terrible design decisions, Dark Souls is challenging by design, but the game gives you so many options while playing that most people could finish it if they stick with it. Unlike most modern games, the game doesn't play itself. It's not enough to see the enemy. You have to pay attention, watch your footwork, balance your defense with your offense, kind of like a real fight. While you can level up and power up your character, the most important experience you gain is the experience of playing. By the end of the game you will have grown more as a player than your character has grown. Sure, having more health points is nice, but being good enough not to get hit is even better. And there is nothing more satisfying than dancing around enemies that once killed you in seconds. What I really appreciate about Dark Souls is the level design, and I'm not just talking about the look here. The way you traverse the levels is a masterstroke of level design. Most areas in the game are designed in a way that lets you unlock shortcuts constantly. While fighting through the castle may have taken you 2 hours, you can just ride the elevator once you have reached and unlocked it. This makes the world feel more alive and also lets you feel the progress you're making. It's just like Metroidvania games, and while designing an interconnected castle on a 2D plane is simple, if not easy, doing so in a 3D environment must have been a nightmare. I mean, there's a reason why the sequel doesn't use as many shortcuts and just lets you teleport everywhere. So if all you know about Dark Souls is that it's hard, don't let that discourage you from experiencing one of the most rewarding games out there. Number 7. Fallout 3. I can't think of many situations in gaming that are as awe-inspiring as the first time you leave the vault in Fallout 3. All of a sudden, the whole world is open to you. You can go anywhere, explore everything, join or kill who you like. It's a sheer joy to roam the wasteland on the lookout for adventure. There could be something around every corner, new ruins to uncover, new quests to find, new weapons to discover. Bethesda is known for creating games with giant worlds full of interesting content, but in my opinion, no world of theirs is as fun to explore as the wasteland. While the shooting mechanics are acceptable at best, the VAT system puts a tactical spin on things, and watching your enemy's body parts fly in 3 different directions in slow motion never gets old. The only negative aspect of the game is the ending, but luckily that got fixed with a DLC add-on. Speaking of DLC, this is one of the few games where I bought every piece of DLC and was happy to do so. I just wanted to spend more time in a wasteland, even though the game is already chock full of content. It's just so engaging. Number 6. Red Dead Redemption. Set in a time when the Old West was on its way to modernity, Red Dead Redemption, like the title implies, follows John Marston, an ex-outlaw on his way to find redemption by bringing one of his former partners to justice. This, in my opinion, is the best game Rockstar has ever made. While I love the GTA games, there is something special about exploring the Old West. The smaller, tighter scope really helps the world feel alive, as smaller, less populated areas are easy to make feel believable in giant metropolitan areas. It is so relaxing to ride your horse down the untamed wilderness and basking in the beauty of the world. Unless you jump by a fucking cougar! And is there anything cooler than winning a high noon duel? With great shooting mechanics, tight atmosphere and excellent writing, Rockstar delivers a complete package. I also haven't seen a better ending in a game yet. Number 5. Castlevania, Symphony of the Night. The game that changed Castlevania. Well, I would like to say forever, but unfortunately that's not true. Incorporating RPG elements into the equation and taking place in a huge interconnected castle, Symphony of the Night is a game that is almost impossible to put down. You constantly find new equipment, making your character stronger, or unlock new abilities that help you traverse new areas of the castle. That way you are always motivated to keep going. It also helps that the game is full of diverse enemies in almost every room. Not to mention the awesomely designed bosses. You can tell that a lot of love was put into the game, from the different enemies and environments to the music, which is definitely one of the best soundtracks ever. Oh, and there's a whole second part of the game that takes place in an inverted castle that has to be unlocked. How cool is that? With all this, getting the famed 200.6% completion rate in the game will take you a long time, and you will love every second of it. Number 4. Silent Hill 2. There is no better horror game out there. What would you do when your dead wife writes you a letter inviting you into a creepy town? James Sunderland travels to Silent Hill after he gets one such letter from his wife, who died years prior. On his way to the truth, you will experience one of the most expertly crafted atmospheres in gaming. Every part of this game is full of suggestive imagery, foreboding soundscape and music, as well as creepy enemies. What makes this game scary as hell is its subtlety. While modern horror games throw nightmarish creatures in your face, Silent Hill 2 invites you into a world that spurs your imagination by suggesting a lot but showing very little. That way the horror happens in your head, which is the most potent kind of horror. This kind of suggestive design can be found in every aspect of the game, whether it be the sound design, the environmental design, or the monster design. The game also tackles very mature themes that most games wouldn't dare touch, like child abuse, sexual frustration, and the depths of the human psyche. If you want to know how effective video games can be at scaring you while telling a mature story, look no further than Silent Hill 2. You! Number 3. The Legend of Zelda, Ocarina of Time. This was a tough one. I don't think I need to justify a Zelda game on my list, but I was struggling with which game to put here. The choice came down to either Ocarina or Link to the Past. And while I love both games for different reasons, Ocarina took the spot for its atmosphere and its world building. Yes, the gameplay is not as fast or immediate as Link to the Past, but the more engaging story really took me by surprise when I first played it. I also never had an adventure in a sprawling 3D world before, and that is an experience that sticks with you. And they used the 3D world to its fullest. The intricate dungeons are still some of the best designed levels in gaming with its multi-level puzzle design. But screw the water dungeon, that was bullshit. There are also few moments in gaming as empowering as escaping the Lon Lon Ranch with Epona, or getting the Master Sword and becoming adult Link. Number 2. Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater. Man, I don't even know where to begin with this game. I've been in love with the Metal Gear franchise since I played Metal Gear Solid on the PlayStation, and as much as I love the first game, MGS3 is definitely the best game in the series, telling a prequel story far removed from the events of the other games. It is a game even gamers unfamiliar with the greater Metal Gear plot can jump right into. But if you are a Metal Gear fan, this game is a treat for you. It has some of the most rewarding stealth mechanics ever. For the first time in Metal Gear history, you were sneaking through large open environments. You had the ability to change your camouflage, and you had to adapt to the constantly changing environments. Not enough games have actual survival mechanics, and MGS3 had some of the most fun ones. If you get wounded, you have to actually treat your wound, and your supplies are limited. You also have to fight hunger by capturing and eating the diverse wildlife in the game. There are also so many ways to get through the game, whether you just straight up avoid everyone, distract enemies by throwing a snake at them, using food to distract them, or just use a hornet's nest to chase them away. There are so many options that it's a lot of fun to try them all out. Also because of this, the game gets much better if you play them on a harder difficulty. Because that way you are required to use all of these elements to your advantage and can't just tranquilize everyone. The boss battles are some of the most creative battles you can find, and each one is very unique. The best one being the sniper duel with the End, which took me about 3 hours on my first try, and I loved every second of it. Also, the game is so full of little details that I can't even begin to list them all here, we would be here all day. Unlike other Metal Gear games, Metal Gear Solid 3 has the perfect combination of story and gameplay. And the story and characters are some of the best in the series.
You should come inside the box. Then you'll know what I mean.
Man, I don't want to know what you mean.
Number 1. Super Metroid. This is it. This is my favorite game of all time. It is beautifully crafted, taking place in a very organically designed, interconnected world. You constantly unlock new abilities, making you more efficient. The boss battles are some of the coolest battles ever conceived. All that makes it a great game. But what makes it my favorite game is the way it tells its story purely for gameplay. With the exception of the intro cinematic, which is voice acting in a Super Nintendo game by the way, how cool is that? There are no words in the story. Everything that is conveyed to you by the environment and the gameplay situations you encounter. It is also a game that respects the player's intelligence. A great example is your ability to use the wall jump. You can use it from the beginning of the game, but the game never tells you. Sure, you could look it up in a manual, but who reads those? Anyway, once you are at a point in the game where you need the wall jump, the game teaches you this technique in a genius manner. You land in a hole you can't get out of, but you see little creatures jumping from wall to wall, so obviously you try to emulate it. Since the move takes some finesse to pull off, you fail a couple of times. And since the hole is so deep, you need to master the technique to get out. That way the game makes sure you're on the same level and it can from now on expect you to know how to wall jump. Design like this is getting increasingly rare, with games that throw you into hour-long tutorials before you can have fun. But Nintendo figured this stuff out years ago. Unfortunately, even they forgot about it and even put long exposition and path markers in future games. Also, let's talk about the ending. Spoilers, by the way. The final battle against Mother Brain is my favorite moment in gaming. You fight her, the fight is going great, until she starts decimating you and leaves you with a slither of health. All of a sudden, you can't get back up, no matter how hard you try. She starts charging a hyper beam, you think you're dead, and then, out of nowhere, the last Metroid you've been chasing this whole time saves your life, and even gives his life to give you the hyper beam, the most powerful weapon in the game. Now it's payback time. Your shots feel so powerful, literally destroying Mother Brain and throwing her head backwards in a violent manner. All this tells a story, while creating an engaging gameplay moment. The game took control away from you, but in a way that made you think you still had control, and that is important. A modern game would just put all this into a pre-rendered cinematic, thereby diminishing the effect. But Super Metroid never takes control away from you completely and tells all its story beats through gameplay and atmosphere. And that is why it is my favorite game of all time.
So, there you have it. Those are my favorite games of all time. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like it and also subscribe if you want to see our future videos. Plus, if you have any kind of feedback, put it in the comments. Oh, and what is your favorite game? Whatever it is. Maybe it's one of the games on my list, who knows? Put it in the comments. Until then, see you next time on Hamstaku.